Okay. No te olvides de grabar, Sergio.
Okay, so I think we're now live. Thank you very much for joining this session. So first, I'm going to introduce, the keynote session in English, and then we will do it in other or different languages. So thank you very much for joining us. We are here in Mexico. We have people from different countries, in LATAM. And here we have Charlie from Microsoft. He is a program manager for over 13 years. And I think, his career is bigger than that. And also Reza is going to present together with Charles this amazing topic, Power BI reports with Power Apps and Power Automate. So Reza is a Power Platform Practice Technical Lead at Catapult System. So it's a pleasure to have you guys. So take it away.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Oh, were you also going to do it in Portuguese as well, in Spanish?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Bienvenidos a todos. Muchas gracias por estar acá. Vamos a empezar esta primera edición del BizAppsLatam Summit en esta keynote de lujo que tenemos, en donde lo tenemos al señor Charles Sterling, que es Program Manager en Microsoft. Y también está Reza Dorrani, quien nos va a estar hablando sobre cómo trabajar con Power BI dentro de las aplicaciones de Power Apps. Muchas gracias por estar y bienvenidos.
Bom dia a todos. Na verdade, é um prazer, estar aqui podendo representar o Brasil, nesse evento. É a primeira edição do BizAppsLatam Summit. É um evento que surgiu da iniciativa de alguns MVPs aqui da América Latina e que tomou uma dimensão enorme que a gente jamais imaginaria. Então, sejam bem-vindos nessa keynote, que vai ser apresentada pelo Charles Sterling e também acompanhado pelo Reza Dorrani. Sejam bem-vindos, fiquem à vontade, participem, perguntem e desfrutem dessa primeira edição do BizAppsLatam Summit, ok? Muito obrigada por estar aqui.
Muchas gracias.
Charles.
All right, folks. My name is Charles Sterling, and as we've already said, Reza Dorrani is actually on the call with me. One of my MVPs. I've been actually doing this presentation with them going on, we've changed the concept, but going on like 2 years, we've actually been working on co-delivering this sort of content. And it's actually going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot of, we're very dynamic. We changed the content up, but we actually have our core set of demos. So my set of demos actually come from our internal user group at Microsoft. And I have a Power BI background. So what you're going to see is a lot of kind of Power BI views or filters in this world. And also, if you missed Ignite, one of the big things we did at Ignite, I want to backtrack a little tiny bit, was talking about how the Teams integration for Power BI and Power Apps is actually one of the big things that we're focusing on. And I happened to notice that 2 days ago that Reza Dorrani did an entire tutorial on how to create your first Power Apps integrated with Teams. So if you haven't had a chance and you are looking to learn about how to actually integrate with Teams, please do check out his video, and I'll let Reza Dorrani actually introduce himself here in about 20 minutes as well. But I just saw that he actually put this out there and want to make sure everybody knew that it was available for us, and he's made that available for free. So Reza, thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so the agenda itself, like I was saying, a lot of this content that I've got came from our internal user group, and it's questions that they've asked. So you can see the agenda. I'm not going to actually walk through the agenda verbatim because we usually change the pathway that we go through anyways. But the first thing that I always get asked, always, because we have a lot of Power BI people at Microsoft, is, hey, Chuck, I've got this report and I just want to go out and add some data to that data set, right? I just want to update the data. And these tend to not be developers that I interact with. These are actually data analysts or they're, designers, but they have these reports and they want to go out and update them with the current data. And what happens is they go out to their favorite search engine and they do a search on adding rows to a Power BI data set. And for whatever reason, the blog post on the Power BI blog comes up and they find this Power Automate action that says add rows to data set. And often as not, this isn't what they want. This isn't this doesn't do what they want to do. Now, since Reza actually has been on the call before, I'm actually going to excuse him for asking, why is this often is not what they want to do? So I see Christian's on the call. Christian, can you unmute yourself and say hello? Christian Abada.
Yes, yes, I'm here. Hi,
perfect.
Hi, Jess.
Hello, my friend. So do you know why this is often not what they want? And they go out and the first thing they say is, hey, I don't see my data set in this flow. Do you know why that is, Christian? Oh, by the way, for folks that don't know Christian, he's a super user in our forums, and he's actually one of my MVPs. So I go way back with Christian as well. Christian,
Yeah.
have you played with this?
Yeah.
Why is it not what they want? And let's go ahead and take.
The reason is because, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was trying to say that maybe the reason is because your data sets needs to be on real time. So it's designed for like consuming APIs. Is that
Christian? Yeah,
Christian
right? Christian got it in one. Exactly right. So most people in the world just they go out and they use Power BI. Let's actually go out and open up Power BI. They start with Power BI Desktop and they'll go out and say get data, and they will often choose Excel or SQL Server or even Power BI data sets. And what we're talking about there is we're actually talking about data flows is actually are stored inside of that the service itself. But in this list, you won't see the one that Christian mentioned, which is actually the real time or the push API data sets. And the reason we differentiate those is because they're not all real time. You can actually have different variants, but they want to actually push data to these. And that's not what that action does. So we can go out and let's take a look at it in action. So this is actually based on, no, let's create one. I'm going to go back up. I'm going to go back into my workspace and I'm going to go out and choose new. And here they call it something a little bit different. I called it a push API data set. And Christian said it's real time. And in the UI, they call it streaming. And we'll actually go out and say that it's API based. And what we're going to go out and we'll call this one Christian because he's actually helping me out here. Christian needs to be spelled right. And since I showed you a sample gun a minute ago, let's actually create it around that same sort of structure. So we'll go out and have score is one of my columns. Go out and it will be of type number. Oops, let's go ahead and select my number. And maybe the name of the person I want to keep their score for. And finally, that date. So I can figure out when they actually got a particular score as well. And this one's actually interesting, is if you don't turn this on, all you have is a redish cache, meaning that it isn't preserved in any way. By clicking this on, you have, I think it gives you 4 million rows of persistent data that you can actually look at this. And I realized that you probably didn't join for a Power BI demo, but let's go ahead and create this. And now let's go ahead and go back into Power Automate. And let's see if I can actually go out and choose the right type of flows. So I'm going to go ahead and say my flows, and I'm going to create a brand new one. And we're going to go out and push some data into one of those brand new data sets using that action that we were just talking about. So we're going to say instant from cloud. And this is going to be a manual one. We're going to make it very simple. And we're going to call it my Christian flow. Apparently, I really want your name with an O at the end for some reason, Christian. I don't know why. Okay. And this is what we're going to, I don't know if that was a good thing or not, but so I'm going to choose my Power BI actions. And one of these is add rows to a data set. Now, I'm actually inside of the Microsoft tenant, so you may look at a whole bunch of preview stuff that I didn't mean to show you. If that's the case, just kind of pretend I didn't show it to you, and we'll all be good, and I won't get fired, and everybody will be happy. So here, when I go out and take a look at my workspace is like an environment. If you're a Power Apps person, you'll see that I'm in the workspace called Chaz1. So let's go ahead and choose the Chaz1 workspace. There we go. And the data set, now over here, we actually created one called Christian right there. See, it's brand new. It's called Christian. We can find that one. And it's right here. Now, what's interesting is that I only see 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't know, a dozen or so. But if I go back in here and look at data sets, I've got a lot more data sets. And this is that problem that Christian was talking about, is I'm not seeing all of them. I'm only seeing those real time. In this case, rather than actually choosing the Christian one that we created, I actually created one that looks just like it, called Scorecard. And we're going to go out and use that one instead, and you'll see why. We didn't create the table name, but if you're using the APIs, you actually get to change that. And here's where we actually had that name and that score and that date. So let's go out and give Christian, what score should we give you, Christian? A 10, probably, right? You deserve a 10. And
thank you so much again.
The date, you're very welcome, my friend. The date, we're going to go out and say it's January 1st. Actually, let's make it my birthday. I'm going to make it January 12th. That's my birthday. And we're going to go out and save this. So this is static. If you watch any of Reza Durrani's videos, he shows you how to push in dynamic data, and I should be doing that. And what I've done is I've actually done that in this application. But let's go ahead and test this. And we're going to go ahead and say manually and test it. And it's now signing in and it's doing this. So let's go ahead and go back into our application. Hopefully we can actually beat it. We're going to be a little bit faster than it. And we're going to find out if we beat it or not. Because if there's a Christian here, no, this is actually a different Christian, because I gave Christian a 10. This Christian has like a 5 or something. So is it not run? Oh, it hasn't run yet. So let's run it. What we should see, since I already have a Christian in that that data set, we actually should see Christian come up to a 14 here in a second. So let's see if that runs. And there he is. Did you guys see that work? Hopefully, yes. And let's go ahead and give Christian another 5 points, because he's a great guy. So here, this is actually a Power App that's initiating that flow, or a flow very similar to the one that we just created. And I can go out and let's say that he was naughty one day, and I'm going to give him a -7. And what we're going to see is these tiles are actually looking at that real-time data. So here is, I'm using Power Apps to push data into a flow, to then push data into a real-time streaming data set and actually display that data. And I usually create this application real-time, but I'm not going to do that today. And the reason I'm not going to do that today is because we started out this demo with, this isn't usually what people want. What we are going to do is we're going to pivot this to what people normally want. So in this case, I'm going to see if there's any questions for the 13 people on the call. And I'm assuming there's not, otherwise Reza would have probably shouted it out or probably answered them. And I'm going to assume that we're going to move forward. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create applications to push data into the data sets that you want. So let's go ahead and go back into my workspace. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up a report called my Dataverse report. And Reza actually has the same sort of a report. Actually, I think it's even based off of a similar data set. And the data set that we're both looking at, by the way, is the one that is built on the App in a Day training. So if you wanted to ever take training on the Power Apps, the App in a Day is great because it's free, it's available all over the world, and then you can take advanced training from people like Reza and Catapult as well. So App in a Day dataset, great place to start your journey. So what we're going to do is, I must not have removed this application from yesterday, and we've got a report in Power BI written against Dataverse. I often write it against SQL Server. This one happens to be in Dataverse. And the importante thing about this, the importante thing es cosa. How do you say thing? Cosa?
Thing.
Yes.
Is the fact that this is based on direct query. And you're going to see that when Reza does his demos, he's also going to base his Power BI reports off of direct query, because it gets us out of the latency problem of needing gateways and having our data out of sync. So this report's based on direct query. Very, very important. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go out and show us how to actually add data back into, this case, Dataverse, from within a Power BI report. And I'm going to go ahead and add the Power BI visual, Power Apps visual. What am I talking about? And it goes out and gives you guidance. I really like this new metaphor for custom visuals. It'll say you need to add your columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my orders, and I'm going to go out and add the device and email. And that's the one I forgot yesterday. I did this demo yesterday. I forgot to add the email, and it was required. So it didn't work out that well for me. And probably price was the other one that was important. So what this does is when I actually create my Power App, I get the Power BI data set handed to it with a filtered view. So if I have 1 million rows, but I have filters on it that only bring me 5 rows, Power Apps only sees 5 rows. At this point, I can go ahead and scroll down to the bottom. And I'm not going to choose create new because I actually want to create this in my environment. We're going to give this a second. And the environment I think is I'm using for my my Power Apps is something called like Chuck's World or Jazz World. Let me see if I can find it. Chuck's World, there it is. And now I can create a brand new Power App. And you're going to see right off the bat, it's going to go out and add a bunch of custom controls on here with that Power BI data set already built in. Apparently I should have logged in. Okay. And if you watch carefully, you'll actually see underneath of the covers, it added a gallery. And it's actually bound that gallery to my data set. Let's go ahead and skip this. And you can actually see that I've got some rows that don't have device names in it. I should actually clean those up at some point. But we're not even going to use that gallery. So it's not terribly important because what I want to do is add data to the Power BI data set. And the Power BI data set is based on what? Dataverse using direct query. So let's go ahead and go out to my forms and go out and choose edit. And it's asking, what is that data source? In this case, it was called orders or something like that. There it is, orders. And I want to add those same fields that we're displaying because those are required fields for this particular entity, table. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, remove that, and add fields. We're going to go out and add, what was it, price, good. And we're going to add email. Email needs to be spelled correctly. Add. And I think manufacturer was the other one. There we go. Okay. And I really like using icons. I like animating them. I like filling them in SVGs. So rather than buttons at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and choose icons just like I did yesterday. And we're going to add a new row to put the data in there. And then we're going to save that new row. And we're going to use that with that checkbox. So let's go ahead and actually add, quote, the code, right? We talk about low code. You can see this is pretty easy. So this is new and a form. And it is called form 1, I think is actually that we created. Form 1, there it is. Form 1 is probably not a great name. We should probably rename it. But as I select form 1, it highlights it. And at this point, what I can do is that gives me the row. This is actually lets me save it. And the way that Power Apps calls saving is called submit form. And once again, we're going to save form 1. And then this would actually add it to the underlying data set, but it's not going to tell Power BI to refresh the visuals. These are real-time streaming data set, with direct query, the data set actually will be up to date, but the visuals in a report are not auto updating. Dashboards are, reports aren't, and we're working on a report. So what we got to do is we got to tell the report to go out and basically do the equivalent to hit this button right here. All right, so this is a report, and I can hit this button and it'll tell the visuals to refresh it, but I want to do the same thing in quote code. And the way you do that is you use this Power BI integration object, and it just doesn't take any arguments. You just say, I want you to invoke that method. At this point, if I save this, and we'll call this one LATAM app, and hit save, and I go back over here, what we should see is the LATAM app showing up in my Power BI report. We were kidding yesterday that invariably in demos, your internet goes slow, and I don't know why. But today I don't seem to be suffering from that. And the theme for these computer devices that we've been using is about cars. So Christian, what is your favorite car?
It's a difficult question, but I think Tesla is a good option.
Oh, Tesla. That's a good one. I don't have any Teslas yet. Okay, and Teslas, I don't think you can get one for 15 grand. So maybe we go out and make it 20 grand. I don't think you can get one for 20 grand either, but that's okay. And if we go out and do some flows later on, I don't want to be sending email to a bunch of other people. So let's go ahead and say that I'm going to be the purchaser of this Tesla and the manufacturer. Since I want to keep it consistent with my data set, I will make it Acer. Actually, I did Acer yesterday. Let's do Dell today. So this is actually that new row. Now, if you watch, I have 69,000 in total device sales, and I don't have a Tesla down here. And if I go ahead and hit save, this should go up to the new value. And we actually see it refreshing. You can actually see it right there. And it just went up to 89,000. And this visual is still updating. And you actually should see Tesla show up here in a second. And again, I can do this for any data source that supports direct query, and actually works very elegantly. And I can actually go out and build applications that have rich data visualization all in one place. Now, historically, before about 4 months ago, I would have said most use cases are going to revolve around you putting a Power App in a Power BI report. That would have been my default suggestion for most cases. About 4 months ago, we didn't even do an announcement. We actually rewrote the control inside of Power Apps to go out and address a lot of the limitations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually ask Reza to share his screen. Sure. And take over control and walk through what the reverse would look like, to where if you wanted to do a Power App but add all that rich data visualization from Power BI inside of your Power App. So Reza, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay. And if you could go ahead and do I need to stop sharing?
No, I think I can share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Perfect. And we are inside of a Power App with a perfect.
Within a Power BI report.
Within a Power BI report, yes.
All right, so first I would like to extend on the demo that Chuck provided earlier. He leveraged Microsoft Dataverse as the backend. Similar scenario for this Power BI report that we are visualizing here. I have Dataverse as the backend. I have a Power App right here in the center. Now, Chuck showcased a feature in which you can create updatable reports. Basically, you're updating your data and you are then initiating a refresh of the Power BI visuals. And since Power BI is in direct query mode, the visual refresh initiates the query against the backend data source once again, and that's why you see the data live. Now that works. That is a feature that works great. But if you come across scenarios wherein your data source is or does not support import query, for example, SharePoint, the most common one that is used. In scenarios like that, you are limited to how many times you can refresh your data set. That depends upon your license. However, if you want to build a scenario like this and initiate the refresh, from Power Apps, you cannot do that. You have to call Power Automate from Power Apps, which in turn can fire the action to refresh the data set. So you have that option open as well with this technique. However, with limits on how many refreshes you can make, I believe the max you can make is 48 based on the premium licensing. Now, one additional add-on to Chuck's demo here, in fact, two. The first one is bulk updates. So in scenarios wherein you would like to update data for multiple records on the fly, here is one of the examples. So I have the following statuses related to my devices. And let's say as the device manager, as the procurement manager, I select a few devices that I would like them to go into repair. These devices were available, or these devices now have some issues, and we have to change the status of these devices to in repair. So I go and select those devices in the Power BI report. Basically, I am filtering my data in the Power BI report. And once I make those selections or apply those filters in the Power BI report, because the Power App is connected to the Power BI report, we should see those filter changes coming in the Power App as well. So here I have selected the following devices. Let's say I reduce a couple more. So I have 4 devices that I have selected. The Power App as well will only now showcase 4 selected devices once the refresh, which we can see on the top left, will complete. Now, the advantage of this is the user can go ahead and bulk update. So I can select the devices that I would like to update. So I've selected all the 4, and I'll say I would like to bulk update this. And the status of all of these devices should move to in repair. Would like to repair these devices. So you can do this individually, or you can bulk update. If I hit this button, in one go, it updates the backend data source, which is Dataverse through Power Apps. This is regular Power Apps functionality. But at the same time, I can also go ahead and quickly initiate a refresh of my Power BI data set. And we can see that live in action here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these devices that are now in repair. And once I remove all the refiners, on the right hand side as well, if you observe, the number of devices that are in repair is now starting to show up. So you can perform these bulk update operations as well by leveraging this technique. Another update that came in was very similar to the Power Apps visual. Now we have the Power Automate visual on very, very similar lines. This allows us to create a flow that gets triggered from the Power BI report. And the beauty of this is that the flow as well that gets triggered gets data from Power BI. And what kind of data? The data set that you're visualizing. So as a user, if I was to filter my data currently in Power BI, I have filtered on the status of my devices being in repair. We can see that change getting reflected on the Power BI report. Now, if I was to click on run this flow, the flow gets triggered and creates a report of the devices that are in repair, since that's the filter that I had selected. And here is the email that I have received related to only those devices that are in that specific status. So this clearly proves that both Power Automate and Power Apps are getting their data from Power BI. Now, let's try and go the other way around. Why not take data from Power BI, basically your reports, your tiles, your dashboards, and bring them into Power Apps? Now, before I get to my demo of inventory management, I'll go ahead and create a blank screen in Power Apps. And typically the way we bring in Power BI information or tiles into Power Apps is we head over to Insert, go to Media, and we go to Charts, and right at the bottom, we have the Power BI tile control. And with this control, if you look at the properties, it will ask you to connect to a workspace. So I'll pick my own workspace. Then it asks you to connect to a dashboard. So these are the dashboards that are available in my specific workspace. So let's say I pick my customer profitability sample dashboard. And then this opens up all the tiles that are available as part of that specific dashboard. So I can select an individual tile, and that specific tile information will showcase right here inside Power Apps. Now this is completely interactable. User can make clicks in this. However, you are just showcasing information for one tile in a dashboard. What if I need to bring in multiple visuals in here? One option is to keep adding this control over and over again and keep connecting to your specific tiles inside your dashboards. So if you look at the properties on the right hand side, or if you look at the name of this control, it might be a bit misleading because it says Power BI tile. Technically, you're bringing in a visual. However, there have been some enhancements that have been made to this. So I'll give one example of that. Let's take this report of mine. If I would like to bring this entire report experience into Power Apps, I can do that. All I need is the URL to the report, the embed URL. If I get that URL, I can head back to my Power App control for Power BI. And right here in the properties, we have this data property. You can plug in that report URL that I copied from Power BI, and I'll plug it right here. And when I do this, in reality, if you ask me, this is literally like Inception. I have a Power App. I have a Power App that is showcasing a Power BI report. That Power BI report also has a Power App embedded into it. And not just that, it also has a flow that I can call right here inside of Power Apps. And this is fully functional, fully interactable. To prove my point, if I start interacting with the data, those filters would start flowing through the Power App and through the other visuals as well. So this is a new feature wherein you can bring the entire report as experience live into Power Apps with your filters, your tabs, your pages. All of these capabilities are possible. Now, not just this, you can also pass query string parameters and filter the reports. Now, this experience is what I converted into an inventory management solution. Here, I have a Power App that tracks the inventory that's coming in and going out of a storage facility. And as the inventory manager, I have access to this app. This app is connected, of course, to a database. My database is Microsoft Dataverse. I'm using that because I wanted to connect my Power BI report in direct query mode. As easy as that. On the left-hand side here, this is a Power BI report that has 2 pages. The first one is facility map. The second one is a tree map. Both these pages currently just have a single visual inside them. The first visual is actually a Microsoft Visio visual, which allows you to bring Visio diagrams inside of Power BI. I have a folder in OneDrive related to Visio, and here I have my storage facility Visio diagram. Now in Visio, you build shapes. So this is the actual diagram, and I have these following shapes that I have created. These are my containers or my spaces inside my storage facility. For each of these shapes, if I head over to shape information, I have a unique key or an identity that is mapped to the shape. So this is shape C1, this is C2, and so forth. In my database, in Microsoft Dataverse, I have a table for containers. There I'm doing the same mapping as the shape ID. Each of these containers have a unique ID, and I have additional properties related to the containers. The name of the container, the square footage of the container, how much space does this container have currently, and what's the total space. This is coming from my database. And with the Visio visual in Power BI, you can connect it to a database and enhance the experience. As you can see, for my shapes, I am able to provide additional metadata that gets plugged in onto the shape. Plus, I can even change the color of the shape depending upon data. So in this case, I have a space that is space J that has 100 square footage, and there are 50 spaces available here. Now, if I want to enter, or let's say I have inventory coming in, I want to start filling in that space. All I have to do is look out for space J. So I have created filters in Power Apps so user can quickly filter down to that space. So let's say I'm interested in space J, H, and G, just randomly picking 3 spaces here. Now, when I make those selections, you will observe that the Power BI visual, or the Power BI report in this case, gets filtered. This is where I'm applying that query string filtering technique to filter my Power BI report. And since I'm applying the filter here to these 3 spaces, Power BI is smart enough to know that this is the only data the user is trying to get forth. And that's why it strips out all the formatting for the other spaces and only focuses on these 3 spaces. And to see how I did this, if I head over to the data property of my Power BI tile control, similar URL to a Power BI report, and this is that query string parameter that I'm firing. Get me the data from the space table where the shape ID is in any of the values the user selects in this combo box control in my Power App. So that's how it's applying the filter. Now, as the inventory manager, I see that space J has space. So I'll select this and I will start adding some inventory that's coming in. Maybe I have 10 fitness benches that have come in, so I'll add them to space J. I have updated my inventory. Maybe I have more inventory coming in. I have some Olympic barbell weight sets coming in. I have 35 of these. I still have enough space to plug it into the specific container. I'll submit this. So my space has started filling up. Now, all of these submissions that I'm making, this is posting the data to my data source, which in my case is Microsoft Dataverse again. And since Dataverse supports direct query, we're going to keep repeating this because the key is direct query here. Since it supports direct query, if I was to now go back to my home screen, we will observe a change. The data in the backend has changed. The Power BI report gets the updated data. The Visio diagram, which was earlier showcasing the color green for space J, now changes its color to red purely because space J only has 5 spaces limit available. It has limited capacity. So that's an example of a Power BI report that's living live inside of Power Apps, plus getting filtered from data coming in, or the filter queries coming in from Power Apps itself. So this was the demo on inventory management. Chuck, how are we doing on time?
We're doing really good. We got it like 15 minutes. Actually, maybe that's not the case. I'm assuming an hour-long session.
So I have
Sergio?
one more demo then to go through, if that's possible. I'll go through the desk reservation.
Before you move on, one thing I'd like you to do is click on the Power BI tile control. If you go to use this, folks, and you're finding out that it's not accepting anything other than like a EQ or a single column, there's actually a new property that Reza set called Allow New API. So if he hits the drop down, and there it is, and you'll see that he set that to true. The default is false. So you're going to want to go ahead and do that to true like him. And then I put in the chat window a link that lets you use all of the query string parameters that Power BI supports, plus some that it doesn't. Do you actually have the one that it lets you change the tabs in working in this one?
No, but I think we can just pass that query parameter, which I believe was report section was the name of that query parameter. So let's give that a shot.
And that's okay. I'm just,
okay.
I guess the interesting point here is that not only can you do everything that Power BI will allow in their documentation, you can actually do some things that are only limited to a Power BI embedded report, which is actually done traditionally by developers. Anyways, sorry, Reza, go ahead and do your other demo. I just wanted to make sure in a call out that Allow New API that
sure.
You want to toggle here.
Perfect. So the second demo that I would like to showcase here is something that I actually built for one of my customers. This is a real world example. Return to workplace desk reservation. Very, very common and a very popular scenario these days. So we are utilizing the same concepts that we demoed today. And here is a desk reservation solution in action. Now, this is a Power BI report. In this, on the left-hand side is a Visio diagram once again. I think Visio is something that is very underutilized. And just to call out, Microsoft Visio is now being offered for free for Microsoft 365 customers. So if you do not need a Visio license now, this is available for free. However, the person who's creating this Power BI report needs to have an additional plan to embed it in here. That's the only license you need. Apart from that, the individuals who are consuming the Power BI report do not need any license whatsoever. I want to call that out for Visio. So here's a Visio diagram. Once again, I have shapes in this Visio diagram. And just to prove that the shapes colors are different, here is my Austin office Visio diagram. And these are the shapes, which are the chairs that the users can basically reserve the desks. Needless to say, I needed an identity for each shape. Once again, I have added an ID for each shape from 1 all the way through 48. Inside my desk reservation solution, I have color coded these specific shapes based upon the sections they are placed in. So seats 1 to 5 is color coded orange. This is color coded blue, and so on and so forth. If I was to edit this report and go to the field mapping for this visual, you will see my color coding in action right here. If you want to change the color to, let's say I want to change this to blue, I just change it to blue and we'll see the colors changing live here in this Visio diagram on the fly. So that's So that's how I built this Visio diagram. Build it in Visio, bring it into Power BI, connect it to your data set, and define the color logic that you would like to implement for that desk reservation solution. In the center, I have a Power App which allows the user to act on the data, basically reserve desks, create a reservation, cancel a reservation, update a reservation. On the right-hand side are a couple of more Power BI visuals that showcase which desks are being reserved the most by users. So these are the most popular desks. And at the bottom is another visual that showcases which users are reserving desks the most. So I only have 2 users in my tenant, and they are the ones who are reserving the desks. And of course, I even have Power Automate that sends me a report of the desk reservation data. So if I was to select this, we'll go ahead and trigger Flow. Flow will get its data from Power BI, and this time it will send me a report of the entire desk reservation system information. What are the desks, who have reserved it, when they have reserved it. Now back here, Power Apps allows me to create content. So I can go to reserve a desk. I can reserve a desk, let's say for the 25th. This will list out all the desks that are available. The ones that are taken would be grayed out. I can select a specific desk and go ahead and click reserve. Submits the data to my data source, refreshes the Power BI visual live. We can see the refresh going on. Now, one additional thing that this feature has is the ability for Visio as well, Visio, to interact with the Power BI data. So when you have Visio connected, if I was to select a specific shape, so let's say I pick this pink seat right here on the top. If I select this, Visio directly zooms into that specific shape that you have selected. Now, although I'm selecting that shape, it is actually filtering the Power BI data at the back end. It's filtering the data to that selected shape. And if you observe on the right-hand side, there were changes that have been made. The Power App has completely changed its behavior. Since Power Apps is getting its data from Power BI, when I selected desk number 12, Power Apps comes to know about it because the data is being passed from Power BI to Power Apps. So Power Apps knows that a selection has been made. So Power Apps completely changes its behavior, directly takes me to the reservation screen, and the only option it provides to me is desk number 12 because it knows my intent here is of reserving desk number 12 because that's the selection I have made on the Visio diagram. So I can straight away go and say, okay, this will go now and reserve that desk for me. And the same behavior works for any desk that I select. So let's go to the top section here. Let's say I select this specific desk. Once again, I've made a selection. I've made a filter in Power BI. I've initiated a filter of the data. Power Apps gets aware of it. This is desk number 44. Desk number 44 pops in on the right hand side. So here is so it's a classic use case of desk reservation, but look at the enhancements we've made to this solution. We've given the user a Visio diagram, a visual representation of their workspace so they can go and make selections. We've color coded those selections. We've brought in dashboarding and reporting through Power BI. We've brought in the ability for the user to reserve something, to update data through Power Apps, and also run reports and additional approvals or scenarios, maybe leveraging Power Automate. And to close out, nothing stops me from going and picking the embed URL of this report, going back to Power Apps, creating a brand new screen because I need more real estate, adding that same Power BI chart control, go to data, just plug in that URL, and believe this, you will get that entire experience that we saw there inside of Power BI, completely available right here inside of Power Apps. Same experience. I can make the selection, reserve my seat, same behavior. So that was my second demo on desk reservation. I'll hand it back now to Chuck for closing out the session.
Thank you very much, Reza. And again, this is actually pretty amazing. You can go out and tie in all the Power Platform in a way that takes advantage of each of those. Reza was showing how you could do automation and walk through entire data sets, then visualize it using Power BI, and then take action using Power Apps. With that, I want to actually open up the floor to any questions. And if not, I'll actually hand it back to Sergio and Christian and the rest of the team. Alberto, any questions?
Gracias, Charles. Thanks, Charles. Just there's one question. I'm gonna say you in English, and then I'm gonna try to add something in Spanish. So, are these all features available to use it, or they are still on preview?
Everything that we go ahead and repeat it in Spanish. Sorry.
Sí, bueno, estamos preguntando si estas funcionalidades están disponibles ya para su uso en producción o si están en preview, sobre todo para saber si las podemos utilizar con qué grado de confianza.
Los todos features es en producción hoy. So all of them, everything is available in production today. There's nothing that we showed that was in preview. The only thing that you might get caught up is that allow new API. It hasn't been announced, but it actually is in the documentation about 3 months ago. Reza, was it 3 months ago? Ish, right?
Yeah, it's around 3 months-ish ago.
Yeah.
Yes.
So while we didn't announce it, it did make all of the production tenants, and it's in the documentation. Literally, we just haven't made an announcement on it. And that's partly my fault. I just need to get time back on it. So great question. There's nothing that we showed today that is in preview and it's not production ready.
Excelente, excelente. Bueno, pues podemos utilizarlas con toda la confianza y la tranquilidad de que están disponibles y que las podemos utilizar en nuestros ambientes de producción. So I think we don't have more questions. It was a great demo, Reza and Charles. Of course, we don't expect anything less than this when you are presenting on events. Thank you very much for your time. So this session was recorded, so we're going to post it on YouTube also, so others can watch it later on the channel. Alberto, Case, Cristian, ¿quieren añadir algo?
No, la verdad, excelente la presentación. Thank you so much, Charles and Reza. Me quedé impactado con muchas de esas funcionalidades. Así que, como dijiste vos, Sergio, va a estar disponible todo luego para repasarlo. Y bueno, nada más que agradecer a los presentadores y a los asistentes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I want to thank the folks that actually organized this. So everybody that went into the LATAM Summit, thank you for organizing this. And of course, my co-presenter, Reza, thank you. I really appreciate the time. And if you haven't watched any of Reza's YouTube videos, please do watch and subscribe. He spends a lot of time on it and they are very worthwhile. So with that, I will close.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Presenting with you again. Bye, everyone.
Muito obrigada, Charles.
Para los que nos siguen viendo, bueno, pues los invitamos a la siguiente sesión de nuestro sponsor, Solution Metrics, acerca de si no sabes o no estás seguro qué CRM hace clic en tu organización. Bueno, pues ellos te van a estar explicando cómo puedes encontrarlo. Thank you very much. Have a good day and see you on next session.